I'll be talking about the 10 steps to financial fitness. The objectives for this session are to learn what it means to have healthy finances, to improve your financial health, to talk about ways to save money, how to reduce your debt, and maybe gain some tips for financial security. So what do we mean when we say financial fitness? Financial fitness can mean different things to different people, and we all have different levels of financial fitness. We've come up with a definition that says financial fitness is a level of financial health that reduces the likelihood of financial problems while allowing us to attain our financial goals. That may be different for different people. So we're going to examine the steps that it takes to achieve that level of financial fitness. Before we talk about the steps, though, it's really important to perhaps understand financial fitness a little bit more clearly. So we're going to talk about some indicators of financial fitness. So in other words, if I were financially fit, what would that look like? So the first indicator would be having enough money for your basic needs. Obviously, if you don't have enough money to cover food, shelter, clothing, and certain medications that you may need to survive, then we couldn't say that you're financially fit. Another indicator of financial fitness is the absence or low levels of liability or risk exposure. And when we talk about risk exposure, things like carrying a lot of debt can be very risky for you. Anything that would sort of pose a financial crisis or disaster if the event were likely to occur in your life. So having the absence of those kinds of risks in your financial portfolio or picture really helps increase your level of financial fitness. Another indicator is whether or not you have manageable expenses. So if we're managing our expenses, we're keeping our expenses below what our income is, it's called living below your means or living within your means. So making sure that our expenses are manageable with the income that we have available to us is really critical as well, and it's a good indicator of whether or not you're financially fit. Savings, of course. Can't be financially fit without having a little savings fund. And what's really critical is basic savings. So what we're talking about here is having enough savings for an emergency and, of course, long-term savings set aside for your retirement. Those are some of the indicators of financial fitness. The ability to be able to manage your debt levels is very critical to being financially fit as well. So if we're carrying a lot of debt, of course, that speaks to our risk exposure. But also, it speaks to whether or not we have enough disposable income to do the things that we want to do and have our money do for us. So having manageable debt levels is also an indicator that we are financially fit. And most critical is to ask yourself, am I attaining my financial goals? So if I'm financially fit, there's an assumption there that we're going to be attaining our financial goals. What do we want our money to do for us, and am I achieving that in my life? So those are the indicators, some of the indicators of financial fitness. So when we're talking about financial fitness, those are the things you want to examine in your own financial plan. So now that we've talked about the indicators, we're on to some of the steps to financial fitness, and we've identified 10 steps. The first step in the 10 steps to financial fitness is to build some self-awareness. Self-awareness is really key in achieving any type of financial fitness, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'm going to go through the 10 steps now, and then we're going to break them down individually and talk to them in isolation of one another. So the first step is to build some self-awareness. The second is to identify values. That's crucial as well. Then, after you've done that, you can move on to identifying some goals for yourself. Securing an income is key to making sure that you're financially fit. Managing debt levels is also critical. Then creating a savings plan for yourself and a spending plan. And those two kind of go hand in hand. You want to make sure that savings is a part of your overall plan to spend money. Building assets is key to having a healthy level of financial fitness. Protecting your assets, once you've got them to where you want them, you certainly want to protect them. You don't want to expose them to undue risk. You want to make sure that all that money and wealth that you've worked so hard for is going to stay there. And then, of course, planning for the future. And that is the most hopeful goal that we can have, is to make sure that we have money for the future to reach and achieve all that we want to do in the future. So those are the steps to financial fitness. So we're going to talk first about building self-awareness. This is not rocket science. We all know that we should save money. We all know that we should live within our means. So why is it that we do it so poorly? So many of us do it so poorly. Well, what we've found in our research and in working with people over the years is that there's a belief system. We all carry money messages around with us. And we found that people are actually wired for wealth or not for wealth. It's because we have a brain, and that may sound counterintuitive, but what happens is we have thought process and belief systems that actually make us think and feel a certain way about money. And when we do that, there may be belief systems and thought processes and habits and attitudes about money that actually may be creating barriers from us achieving our financial goals. Actually setting up a barrier that keeps us from getting to where we want to be and how we want to work with money. So key is, we all know how to do this. Why don't we do it? Because we haven't done enough work around our self-awareness. So we want to start with building some self-awareness. And to do that, we ask people to look at their money messages. What are some of the belief systems that you carry with you that may or may not be working for you? And when I talk about a belief system, I'll give you an example. Walking down the street one day, and there's a big Dalmatian running toward me when I'm walking with my partner, Bill. And so I see this big scary Dalmatian coming toward me, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm running up onto the porch and I'm knocking on the door saying there's a big fierce dog. My experience as a child was that I was scared by a big dog and consequently carried that fear with me throughout my entire life. Bill, on the other hand, is standing on the sidewalk looking at me going, what is up with you? Bill's experience with dogs is that they're nice, friendly, furry creatures. He's had a big dog all his life. So who's right? Well, we both are. Belief systems often you have to take it into context. And so my experience with dogs early on really set my attitude towards animals for the future, as did my partner Bill's. It's not that we're wrong, one wrong's one right. There are just different belief systems. So when you look at your belief systems around money, what you have to drill down into is, are those belief systems still working for you? Are they serving you well, or are they actually acting to impede your success with money? So those are some of the things that you can look at before you move on to doing your financial plan. Now, money habits and attitudes are another thing. We form habits and attitudes around our money. So how do we use money? What habit do we get into with money? What are our attitudes around money? When you think of the sentence like, money doesn't buy happiness. So is that something that you believe in, or is that something that you don't believe in? What habit do you use when you're out spending money? Are you in a savings habit? So those all factor into our use of money and our behavior with money. Next, we'll talk about what motivates you to use money, what motivates your behaviors with money. Some of us are motivated, money means for us power. Money can be a source of power. For some, money can be a source of security. For others, it can be freedom. And for yet others, it can be a source of love. So when we buy gifts for other people, we're searching for that love, that human connection. So it's really critical, as well as understanding our money messages, our habits and attitudes. We also need to understand ourselves as far as what motivates us to spend or save money. I'm sad one day. What's going to make me feel better? I'm going to go to the mall and shop. That will make me feel better. So understanding is key to setting up some defense mechanisms and some coping strategies around how you deal with money in order to achieve your financial success. And then if that weren't enough, there's also influence on our psyches by societal values. So we value consumerism, we're a consumer society. There are a lot of things that people expect us to be or do or have. How we define ourselves is very much in alignment with how we spend, what we are, our material goods, our stuff. We're defined a lot by our stuff, and society defines us that way as well. So we really need to look at what else is shaping the decisions we make around money. And taking back control, having a good self-awareness and taking back control of our spending habits is the first step in really moving forward to a successful level of financial fitness. Next, we want to identify our values. So once we've gotten our act together and understand what motivates us to spend and what motivates us to save and where there may be barriers keeping us from actually achieving what we want to achieve, what's next? People often will want to jump right into, okay, let's create a budget. And I say, back up, wait a minute here. We're not done with some self-examination. What we really need to look at is identifying our values. We maintain that really in order to be successful financially, you need to live a life and spend money and behave with money according to your true values. So we talk about value systems, and often our money behavior often conflicts with our stated values. For instance, what do we mean by values? Well, somebody may value family. Family is a key value for most people, and they will tell you that I really value time with my family. So if we look at that and we think about our lives, and you say that you value time with your family, and yet you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, your lifestyle conflicts with your stated values. And it's the same with our money. What are the value systems that we're going to use to spend money, to save money? We may value having a lot of material goods. That may be our value systems, in which case the corresponding behavior would be to spend in order to achieve or acquire those material values. We may value savings, which may motivate some of us to spend further. So really, before we sit down and decide what we're going to spend our money on, we really have to think about what we value most in life. Because there's a million choices out there. We have far more choices of how to spend our money than we will have money coming in. So we're going to need to make some strategic decisions. And if that decision making is done in such a way that it aligns with our values, okay, what's really most important to me in my life, then that really helps guide the decision making, the tough decisions that we'll have to make around money. So spending some time to discuss what's really important and valued to yourself and your family gives you insight into conflicting conflicts and maybe some ways to resolve them. It may explain your money behaviors and your partners, which is really key. And it also helps prioritize your spending and saving. So having a clear understanding of what you value in life is really helpful going forward.